When GMMTV announced that Winny and Satang would no longer work as a duo, many fans were shocked and immediately started asking what happened. In this video, we're looking at their individual charts, their couple horoscope, and the transits around the day of the announcement to see what the stars might reveal about this sudden change and whether the horoscope indicates a possible reunion. Hello stars, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Beatrice, I'm an astrologer and huge BL fan, and today I'm taking a look at the horoscopes of Winny and Satang. As you probably already know, GMMTV announced that Winny and Satang stopped working together as a couple. It was hard to miss this information because everybody was talking about it when it happened. Even people who are not their fans were shocked because nobody saw this coming. And of course, we all have a lot of questions and would like to know what happened, especially since WinnySatang had a series planned. GMMTV announced My Professional Boyfriend as part of their 2026 lineup. Just like you, I was curious to find out more, so of course I immediately looked at their horoscopes. And in this video, I want to share with you what I saw there. From the beginning, I want to tell you what I won't say in this video. I can't give you a concrete answer about what happened. I don't know Winny, Satang, or anyone from their team. I don't have insider knowledge or anything like that. Also, astrology is amazing, but it has its limits. Especially without knowing the boys' exact birth time, it's hard to draw clear conclusions from their charts. So what can I tell you? Here's what you can expect from this video. I will start with some things that I've noticed in their individual birth charts and in their couple horoscope, things that indicate a sudden breakup. Then we look at their individual and couple horoscope for the period around the 3rd of March when GMMTV made that announcement. I'll tell you why, in my opinion as an astrologer, not as a WinnySatang shipper, the GMMTV announcement was actually a good thing. And last but not least, we're looking at whether the horoscope suggests a possibility of them getting back together. So let's start with their birth charts and couple horoscope. I won't make a detailed analysis as I usually do on my channel, but there are some interesting things I noticed in these charts that actually foreshadow this sudden turn of events. So I want to share them with you. In Satang's birth chart, there are several patterns that connect to sudden changes in partnerships, especially partnerships that are visible to the public. First, we see Juno and Sappho in Leo. In astrology, Juno often describes committed partnerships and important collaborators. Sappho is traditionally associated with artistic expression and is also often connected to themes of same-sex love and attraction. And Leo is the sign of the stage, performance, and visibility. When these energies combine, they can describe someone who becomes known as part of a creative duo performing together on stage or on screen, most likely in queer or BL-type stories. In other words, Satang's birth chart indicates a possible career in the BL industry. But there is another factor in the chart that adds a completely different energy. He also has Hera very close to Uranus in Aquarius. Hera is an asteroid that is, like Juno, linked to marriage, commitment, and partnerships. Uranus is the planet of sudden change, surprises, and breaking away from established structures. When Uranus connects to partnership indicators, relationships can experience unexpected shifts or sudden turning points. Things can change quickly, sometimes without much warning. And this theme becomes even stronger because Satang's Sun in Scorpio forms a T-square with these partnership points, Juno in Leo and Uranus with Hera in Aquarius. A T-square is a tense pattern between 3 points in the chart that tends to create pressure, movement, and important developments in life. In this case, the core identity represented by the Sun is pulled between partnership energy and Uranian change. That can manifest as intense connections with co-workers, but also moments where the dynamic suddenly transforms or breaks into a new direction. There is another pattern that reinforces the idea of major turning points. Fortuna, an asteroid linked to luck and wealth, sits at a degree that astrologers often call a critical or transitional degree. It forms a T-square with the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius. The North Node represents the direction someone is growing toward in this lifetime, while the South Node represents past habits or familiar patterns that need to evolve. In this case, the south node in Sagittarius is joined by Chiron, an asteroid linked to old wounds and healing, and Pallas Athena, which is associated with strategy, intelligence, and creative thinking. When all these points connect in a T-square, it often appears in charts where a person's life path involves important crossroads and changes of direction. Because Gemini and Sagittarius are signs connected to communication, storytelling, and sharing ideas with the public, these turning points can often happen through media work, acting, or public projects. And last but not least, the chart contains a very powerful structure. Saturn in Gemini opposite Pluto in Sagittarius, forming a grand cross together with Psyche in Virgo and Lilith in Pisces. A grand cross creates a lot of pressure, but it also creates movement. It pushes life events to evolve through challenge and transformation. In many cases, it describes situations where circumstances force a person to redefine their role, their environment, or their partnerships. Saturn represents rules, responsibilities, and external structures, while Pluto is the planet of deep transformation and power shifts. When these two oppose each other, situations can arise where old structures break down so something new can emerge. Psyche adds a layer of deep emotional sensitivity and soul-level awareness, while Black Moon Lilith often represents independence, raw emotions, and a refusal to stay in situations that no longer feel authentic. Together, this combination can describe moments in life where emotional truth and personal growth push someone to break away from an existing dynamic and step into a new phase. When you put all of these patterns together, the chart shows someone whose life can be strongly shaped by partnerships, creative collaborations, and public storytelling, but also someone whose path includes sudden shifts and turning points within those partnerships. So while his birth chart cannot tell us exactly what happened behind the scenes, it does contain several signatures that align with the possibility of sudden changes in a public duo dynamic. Now let's look at Winnie's birth chart, because here we also find patterns connected to partnerships and sudden changes. One of the most striking placements is Uranus conjunct Juno in Aquarius, and very close to this conjunction we also find the asteroid Cupido. In astrology, Juno represents important partnerships and committed collaborations, while Uranus is the planet of sudden change, surprises, and breaking away from established patterns. When Uranus connects with Juno, partnerships can go through unexpected shifts or sudden turning points. Things may change quickly, sometimes without much warning. The presence of Cupido, an asteroid associated with attraction and emotional bonds, adds another layer to this combination. It can highlight relationships where strong chemistry or emotional connection plays an important role. The Uranus-Juno conjunction also forms a tense aspect to Winnie's Sun in Scorpio. The Sun represents a person's core identity. In this case, the tense aspect suggests that partnerships and collaborations can become important catalysts for change in his life, sometimes pushing him to redefine his role or direction. But this placement is not isolated. The Uranus-Juno conjunction is part of a larger structure in the chart known as a kite pattern. In astrology, a kite forms when several harmonious aspects create a supportive triangle, while another point sits opposite and becomes the focal point where the energy of the entire pattern is directed. In Winnie's chart, there are actually several overlapping kite patterns. When we combine them, we see a central cluster of planets and asteroids in Sagittarius, Pluto, Chiron, and Fortuna, acting as the focal point. Pluto is associated with deep transformation and power shifts, Chiron with wounds and healing, and Fortuna with positive life circumstances and opportunities. Opposite this cluster, we find Jupiter, Amor, and Psyche in Gemini. Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion, while Amor and Psyche are asteroids often connected to love, emotional bonds, and deep connections between people. All these points form harmonious aspects with two other important areas of the chart. One contains Mars, Karma, and Nike in Libra. Mars represents action and drive. Libra is the sign most closely associated with relationships and partnerships, and Nike is the asteroid linked to achievement and recognition. The other area is a large cluster in Aquarius, including Neptune, Uranus, Juno, Eros, Vesta, Sappho, and Cupido. Aquarius is strongly connected to groups, audiences, and unconventional paths, while Neptune often relates to art, imagination, and creative industries. When you put all these elements together, the chart again highlights how relationships, emotional connections, and collaborations can play an important role in Winnie's public path. But because Uranus and Pluto are involved in this structure, these partnerships may also experience sudden shifts, unexpected developments, or moments where the dynamic changes direction. So just like we saw in Satang's horoscope, Winnie's chart also contains several signatures that connect important partnerships with transformation and turning points. Now let's look at their composite chart, which in astrology represents the energy of the relationship itself. While the birth chart describes each person individually, the composite chart shows what the connection between them is like when they come together. One thing immediately stands out again: dear old Uranus. In the composite chart, the Sun and Juno are conjunct in Scorpio. The Sun represents the core identity of the relationship, while Juno is strongly connected to partnership and committed collaborations. When these two come together, it often shows a connection where partnership becomes the defining theme, like a sign that the two people are meant to connect in some meaningful way. But this conjunction forms a square to Uranus and Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius. As I already mentioned, Uranus is the planet of sudden changes, surprises, and breaking away from established structures. Lilith represents raw emotion, independence, and the refusal to stay in situations that no longer feel authentic. This configuration describes a partnership that feels intense and powerful, but also one that can go through sudden shifts or unexpected turning points. There is also an interesting creative signature in the chart. The asteroid Pallas Athena sits at 29 degrees in Scorpio, a degree astrologers often associate with transition and culmination. This asteroid is linked to strategy, creativity, and intelligent expression. It forms a trine to the asteroid Psyche at 0 degrees in Leo. Psyche is associated with deep emotional connection, while Leo is the sign of performance, creativity, and the stage. This harmonious connection can describe a partnership where emotional depth and creative performance work very well together, which fits surprisingly well with the idea of acting together in romantic stories. Another important pattern involves Saturn in Gemini, opposite Venus and Mars in Sagittarius. Saturn represents structure, limits, and external pressures, while Venus and Mars together often symbolize attraction, passion, and relationship dynamics. An opposition between these energies can create tension between emotional or romantic chemistry on one side and limits external responsibilities or expectations on the other side. Last but not least, the composite chart contains another tense configuration. A T-square involving Jupiter in Gemini, opposite Chiron and Ceres in Sagittarius, and all squaring Amor in Pisces. Jupiter represents growth and expansion, while asteroid Chiron is connected to old wounds and healing processes. Asteroid Ceres is often linked to care, support, and emotional nurturing, and asteroid Amor symbolizes romantic love and affection. When these points form a T-square, it can describe a connection where love, growth, and emotional healing are strongly intertwined, but where the relationship may also trigger sensitive emotional themes for both people. When we put all these patterns together, the composite chart shows a partnership that carries strong emotional depth, creative chemistry, and a powerful collaborative energy. At the same time, the repeated presence of Uranus suggests that this connection may also be marked by unexpected shifts and important turning points along the way. We now come to the part where I speak about the period of time around the GMMTV announcement and about the near future. Once again, I look both at their individual charts and at the couple horoscope. But before that, let me tell you one thing. What happened is not over yet. On the day of that announcement, we had two important astrological events. Mercury was retrograde and there was a lunar eclipse. Both transits indicate that the events that took place on the 3rd of March are not finished yet. Astrologers often view lunar eclipses as moments of culmination and change. They can bring emotional breakthroughs, endings, or events that shift the direction of a situation. But while the strongest emotional impact usually happens within a few days of the eclipse, the developments it triggers can continue to unfold over the next 6 months, often connected to themes that have been developing over the previous year and a half. Retrograde Mercury also works in 3 phases. The announcement from the 3rd of March is, in my opinion, connected to things that happened sometime between the 11th and 25th of February, especially around the 21st. And the whole situation might still unfold until the 9th of April. I don't know if we will get more information about WinnySatang or about their planned series, but I am sure that something is still happening. The entire situation is not over yet. To help you understand how powerful retrograde Mercury is, here's a prediction that I made back in November 2025, a few days before the GMMTV event where they announced their 2026 lineup. You shouldn't trust everything that will be presented at the GMMTV event on the 25th of November. Mercury, the planet of communication, is currently retrograde, meaning that many things that are being communicated now will be turned upside down later. Shortly after that, GMMTV cancelled the highly anticipated series replay with Tae New, Ponpu Win and Joska Win. And now we have the WinnySatang situation, and at least at the time when I made this video, no information about the future of my professional boyfriend. By the way, if GMMTV will recast the roles, who would you like to see as the main couple? Let me know in the comments. Now let's look at the planetary movements that directly affected their chart. At this point, I need to mention that I don't know their exact birth time, which makes the reading incomplete. Please give me a minute to explain why the exact birth time is so important. When we look at the horoscope, we usually notice something like slices of a pizza. The chart is divided into 12 pieces called astrological houses, with each representing certain areas of life. For example, we have the 10th house representing one's career, public image, social standing. Let's say Jupiter, the planet representing optimism, growth and luck, is transiting this house. That means that the person will probably have huge professional success during this time. The problem is, in order to draw these houses, an astrologer needs the exact birth time. Since I don't know Winnie's and Satang's birth time, I can't see these areas in their charts. Nonetheless, I have a lot of information that I want to share with you. But to summarize it, in my opinion, the GMMTV announcement was actually a good thing for Winny and Satang. I looked at both their individual charts and at the couple chart for the 3rd of March at 12 p.m. Bangkok time when GMMTV posted the announcement. In Satang's horoscope, I can see a mix of tension and opportunity. There were some challenging aspects all active at the same time, but also many supportive influences. I will mention only the most important ones. The most significant transit is Jupiter exactly conjunct his natal Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of growth, luck and optimism, and it takes about 12 years to travel through the entire zodiac. So this alignment only happens once every 12 years. For Satang, this Jupiter return started around mid-August 2025 and lasts until early April 2026. In astrology, a Jupiter return often marks the beginning of a new chapter of growth, expansion, and opportunities. It can open doors, bring new experiences, and encourage someone to move into the next phase of their life. At the same time, there were also some strong pressure aspects. The transiting Sun and the asteroid Pallas Athena were forming a square to his natal Pluto and Saturn. Pluto is associated with deep transformation and power shifts, while Saturn represents structures, responsibilities, and limits. When these energies are activated, situations can arise that push someone to redefine their role or move through an important change. Another interesting point is the asteroid Karma very close to his natal Sun, which represents identity and personal direction. In astrology, this asteroid is sometimes associated with important turning points or moments that feel significant for someone's life path. I also noticed that the transiting North Node and the asteroid Amor were conjunct his natal Lilith and forming a positive aspect to his natal Mercury. The North Node is linked to life direction and future growth, while Amor is connected to love and emotional bonds. Lilith often represents independence and authenticity, the part of us that refuses to stay in situations that no longer feel right. When you look at all these influences together, the moment combines pressure for transformation with signals of a new cycle beginning. In astrology, this kind of time often appears when one chapter closes so that a different direction can open up in the future. In Winnie's horoscope for the 3rd of March, there were many tense aspects, even more than in Satang's. At the same time, there were also some long-term influences pointing toward major personal change and growth. One of the most important influences is transiting Uranus conjunct his natal Saturn. Saturn represents structures, responsibilities, and stability, while Uranus is the planet of sudden change and disruption. When these two come together, situations can arise where existing structures are suddenly challenged. In many cases, this transit pushes a person to break away from something that has become too restrictive or outdated and to move toward a new way of doing things. There was also a tense aspect involving transiting Mars triggering his natal Saturn. Mars represents action, drive, and initiative, while Saturn represents limits and responsibilities. When these two form a tense aspect, it can feel like trying to move forward while encountering obstacles or pressure from external circumstances. Interestingly, Mars at the same time formed a harmonious trine to his natal Mercury and the asteroid Pallas Athena, which are both connected to thinking, strategy, and decision-making. This kind of combination can indicate a moment when someone has to navigate challenges carefully and think strategically about their next step. Another sensitive area in the chart involves partnership indicators. The transiting North Node and the asteroid Amor formed a square to his natal Hera, an asteroid associated with commitment and partnerships. At the same time, the Moon was also squaring Hera, temporarily activating this theme emotionally. When partnership indicators are under pressure like this, it can sometimes correspond with changes, tensions, or turning points within important relationships or collaborations. There were also strong transformation aspects active. The transiting Sun and the asteroid Pallas Athena were forming a square to his natal Pluto, a planet associated with deep change, power shifts, and transformation. When Pluto is activated like this, situations can arise that push someone to confront something important and move through a significant transition. In addition, transiting Pluto was conjunct his natal Neptune, Eros, and Vesta, a combination that can point to deeper inner transformation and changing emotional priorities. Neptune relates to ideas and imagination, Eros to passion and emotional intensity, and Vesta to dedication and focus. When Pluto activates these energies, it often marks a period where someone's inner motivations and commitments begin to evolve on a deeper level. His natal Jupiter was also under pressure from several transits, including squares from the transiting Moon, the North Node, and Amor, as well as an opposition from Black Moon Lilith. Jupiter represents growth, opportunities, and expansion, so when it is challenged by multiple transits at once, it can sometimes correspond with moments where expectations, plans, or future directions are being reassessed. Looking at the long-term influences active during this period, a clear theme appears. A time of breaking away from old structures, rethinking his direction, and going through deep inner transformation while preparing for the next stage of his life. And finally, there is another major transit happening during this time. Transiting Jupiter is conjunct his natal North Node, an alignment that only occurs once every 12 years. For Winnie, this transit began around the end of August 2025 and continues until mid-April 2026. When Jupiter meets the North Node, it often signals important opportunities, growth, and a sense of moving toward the next stage of one's life path. Taken together, the astrology around this moment suggests a period where significant change and pressure coincide with the opening of a new direction. Moving over to their horoscope as a duo. On the 3rd of March, it suggested a major turning point in the dynamic of the partnership. The influences active at the time point to strong pressure for change, moments where existing dynamics can no longer continue in the same way, and situations that push a connection to transform or move into a new phase. At the same time, the chart also shows signs that this moment was not only about tension, but also about processing the situation, communicating about it, and gradually adjusting to a new direction. In astrology, this kind of combination often appears when something important reaches a turning point and both sides have to redefine how the relationship continues from there. Interestingly, there were also supportive influences present, suggesting that even during a period of change, there can still be a sense of protection, acceptance, or the possibility that events ultimately lead to the right direction for both people. One transit that I personally found quite symbolic was transiting Juno conjunct the asteroid Ceres. In astrology, Juno represents partnerships, while Ceres is associated with care, protection, and themes connected to children or nurturing. What made this especially interesting is that after the announcement, a lot of fans, but also other artists, focused a lot on Winnie Satang's mascot samurai as if he was the child of a divorced couple. Overall, the astrology around that day reflects a moment when the partnership dynamic was undergoing an important shift, making the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new stage in the story. If we look at the longer timeline in Winnie Satang's relationship horoscope, we can see that the connection between them already went through a period of very strong positive activation over the past 2 years. I dare say that this was the peak of their career as a duo, at least for the time being. One of the most significant moments happened in May 2024 when transiting Jupiter conjunct their composite sun. Jupiter is the planet of growth, visibility, and expansion, and when it meets the Sun in a composite chart, the relationship itself can become more visible and successful. Just a few weeks later, in June 2024, Jupiter also conjuncted their composite Saturn, which often corresponds with moments when a collaboration becomes more established or structured. Interestingly, this was exactly the period when their series We Are was airing. Another strong activation followed in 2025. In April and May 2025, transiting Jupiter conjuncted Mercury and Jupiter in their relationship chart, highlighting communication, promotion, and shared projects. This transit is associated with growth, opportunities, and expansion. And the activation continued in July 2025 when Jupiter conjuncted their North Node. The North Node in astrology represents destiny and the direction of growth, so when Jupiter meets this point, the partnership can feel like it is moving toward an important milestone. This period likely corresponds to the time when they were filming that summer. What about the current situation, and is there still a chance for them to get back together? Looking at the current horoscope, some smaller transits may shift the situation slightly. For example, Mercury turning direct on the 20th of March can change the flow of communication or clarify misunderstandings, or we might get more information. There will also be a series of sun activations between April and mid-June, which usually brings moments when the connection becomes more visible or important again. This period could highlight the partnership again and bring moments when the connection becomes more visible or active. Another longer influence is also active between February and mid-July when Black Moon Lilith moves across several important points in the duo's chart. In astrology, Lilith often represents strong emotion, independence, and the desire to break free from situations that no longer feel authentic. When Lilith activates key points in a relationship chart, it can sometimes bring deeper tensions or unspoken feelings to the surface, pushing the dynamic to evolve in some way. However, these influences I mentioned are relatively minor and usually not strong enough on their own to create major turning points. Of course, this interpretation comes with a small reservation because without knowing the exact birth time, there could still be areas of the chart receiving stronger influences that we cannot see. One transit that stands out more clearly is transiting Jupiter forming a trine to their composite Sun and Juno. Juno represents partnership and committed collaborations, and the Jupiter trine is generally a supportive and positive influence. Interestingly, this transit was active when the series That Summer was released. And the good news is that the same Jupiter trine will happen again in May 2026. There is also another important transit approaching, Uranus conjunct Saturn, which will become active in the second half of June. Uranus represents sudden change, while Saturn represents structure, discipline, and limitations. When these two meet, they can sometimes bring unexpected shifts that redefine how a partnership or collaboration functions. So if we look at the timeline, May 2026 could potentially open another window where the partnership is supported again by positive influences. However, the Uranus-Saturn conjunction happening shortly afterward suggests that June could bring sudden developments or surprises once again. In other words, if there still is a possibility for Winny Satang to work as a couple again, the strongest window would likely appear in May 2026. But no matter what news we get, I wouldn't think of it as being set in stone before June. We will have to wait until June to see how the story ultimately unfolds and to get a final answer. Summing everything up, when we look at all these charts together, it's interesting to see that the moment of the announcement wasn't only marked by tension but also by many supportive and forward moving influences. So it's very possible that this moment is not only about an ending but also about new projects or new directions already taking shape behind the scenes. In my opinion, the announcement might actually turn out to be a positive development for both of them. Individually, if the pairing was starting to limit their growth, but also potentially for them as a duo. Sometimes stepping away from a situation allows both people to evolve, gain new experiences, and later return with even stronger energy. Moreover, the reaction online shows that this moment has also brought them even more attention. Many people discovered Winny and Satang only now because of the discussions and reaction tweets. So instead of seeing this only as a loss, it might also be a time when even more people started paying attention to the work Winnie Satang created together in the past. Whatever the future holds, the most important thing we can do as fans is continue to support both of them in their individual projects and in whatever collaborations may come next. Because sometimes in astrology, just like in stories, a turning point is simply the start of the next chapter. If you enjoy this analysis and are curious about other BL couples too, in the upcoming videos we'll look at the charts of Tae New and Xu Jin from Kill to Love. Until next time, shine bright like the stars.